Hello, everybody, and welcome now to the 13th episode of the BadMotoGP-Show. As we continue, it gets more difficult to pronounce these numbers, so maybe we start from one again next year. No, but yeah, we're here to discuss Assen. I've been there live. You maybe have heard a little bit of my complaints towards the circuit organization. But yeah, Keelan, you enjoyed the race weekend?
Yes, very well. Hello, Leo. Welcome back, everybody, to episode number 13. Lucky, unlucky, I don't know. We're back with number 13, the episode of the podcast. And of course, this past weekend, what we were summoned spirit, most in person, in Holland for the Assen Grand Prix. Once again, like every race this season, there hasn't been a race that hasn't lived up to expectations, but Assen always delivers, and this weekend it did again. I love the races, big fan of everything, with the exception of a few people that went on in all the classes. Great races as always. But I was disappointed. I mean, it's very rare we ever say this. I don't think we ever have said it. I was extremely unfortunate to hear about your experiences, Leo. I'm very sorry that you had the experiences you did. Obviously, we're going to discuss that in a bit more detail. And yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, as you said, the races were amazing, and this is actually the sad part about it, because from a viewer's experience, the organization is very good. You have a very nice a very nice parking spot, which is well coordinated. We've been there early in the morning before the warm up, so we didn't have to wait in traffic as you should when you attend a race, because it's all proper planning. But yeah, you have a nice parking spot. The way to the circuit is not far. Unfortunately, we had to go right around to the circuit because we didn't know that there were other parking spaces. But yeah, nothing bad. But it began already in the morning that there were people in Assen. There are those grandstands and those green hills where people can watch the races too. And you basically walk right around to the track. And some dude was standing on top of the green hill, pissing down there and showing everybody his dick. Wasn't necessarily the best dick I've ever seen, but yeah.
Jesus Christ.
No, but there's this way right around the circuit, and you don't have to stand there and piss down where everybody can see it. Which is a bit of a problem there, because everybody does it, and part of the result is that the toilets cost a fee, which to me is unacceptable, because when you pay, like, how many euros did we pay? I can't remember, but like north of 200 euros, or
A
maybe,
good amount of money.
yeah, a good amount of money. I purchased these tickets a long time ago, so I already forgot. But yeah, um, I think it's not too much to ask for to have free toilets, but okay, every other circuit manages to do this. Yeah, then we arrived at the grandstand. We were like on the grandstand before the one at the last chicane. I forgot the name. It's something with W. So you could see the track. You were really close, and it was a very good view. Amazingly, you saw even the other side of the circuit. So you basically saw everything apart from the first, and like the down section where they turn around and come back to this fast flowing section. Yeah, so it was a very, very nice spot, but then again we had some issues with certain fans, because I've posted a tweet and I've posted an Instagram post. So if you haven't seen it, you should, because I'll lay everything down in detail there. And yeah, so basically everybody there was extremely drunk. I figured out that there actually is a festival. I didn't know that. Some people told me that, that there's this week of partying and it ends with the Dutch GP. So there are naturally a lot of people who are littering like crazy. I mean, everywhere you walk, there's trash. You can't walk even on the grandstands. Nobody's picking their trash up. You can't walk there without kicking trash from point A to point B. It's, yeah, not necessarily the best look. And with all the people pissing down there, yeah, it's very, very disgusting to see the behavior of certain people. And when it went from bad to worse is there was a moment where me and my girlfriend, we sat on the grandstand, and she wanted to have something to eat, so I stayed on the grandstand. She bought herself something to eat and came back and told me that she has been sexually harassed by three different people on three different occasions, which is totally unacceptable. There was one instance where a dude just had like a disrespectful pickup line. I mean, it's not necessary. Catcalling isn't cool, but out of all the things that happened, it's like the most, yeah, I don't want to say most acceptable, but I can live with this the most, because there are other people like pushing her, or another dude just grabbed her inappropriately. And I mean, it's right in public. There should be security, but there is no one. It's actually like, apart from the race, which was great, the circuit is good, but apart from that, it's the worst experience I've ever had at any GP, because you literally can't take your family there, because imagine you have like 5 or 6 year old kids who see this. You don't want to your kids to see this, and you can't take your girlfriend there and leave her like leave her alone for 3 or 5 minutes or whatever. It's I'm not her dad. She's not my child. I shouldn't watch her all the time. I mean, she's an adult human being and should be able to go to the toilet or go to grab some snacks without experiencing those things. So I'm really disappointed in the organization, because a lot of people told me that it has been like this for 30, 40 years. It never changes. And I've been to the Dutch GP in 2014, which was my first one, basically the same. 2019, I went with my mom, so naturally a little bit less of the whole surroundings, because we just went there, watched races, went back, but there was still crazy littering and crazy amounts of people being drunk and acting like dickheads. Because I don't know why they do this, but they think it's a great idea to set the trash on fire. I mean, it's literally plastic burning. You can also watch this on the Instagram highlight. It's kind of disgusting to smell. And even on the grandstand, where it's like a couple 100 meters away from the green hills there, I don't know what they're called, wild grandstands, whatever. Yeah, you can smell it, and this is completely unnecessary. And it's very, very shocking that nobody bats an eye. I mean, the organization of the circuit is so bad that there's no security, and nobody checks on those people who just behave like animals. I've never experienced it at any motorsport event in my life, and I've been to a couple. So let's count them. I've been to MotoGP in Portugal, which was a good race. I could recommend it. There were a few things that annoyed me, that you had to go to the city to grab your parking ticket and then go to the track, and you couldn't bring your food in there. But in comparison to Assen, it's like nothing, but a little bit annoying. But okay, then 2 races in Spain, in Valencia and in Jerez. It was amazing. I can recommend Spain to everybody, especially Valencia, because of the layout. You can see basically everything. And also Jerez is so good. You can, I was there at the last corner. You can see everything. Organization is properly, and yeah, it's just a good experience. They know what to do, you know. And I've been to Italy, no problems at all. Very good race. Where I've been to Austria 2 times last year, where they had the double header. Very, very great race. I can recommend it. I will go there again this year. So yeah, we have like basically every Grand Prix in the near area except France, where I've been, and I've never experienced something like this. And to a great extent, I've been to motorcycle races at the Nürburgring. I've been to car races at the Nürburgring, especially like the 24-hour race is basically the same like Assen, where it's like a week of a festival, not a literal festival, but people are camping there and partying for the whole week. And then it ends with the great race and everybody goes home. But nobody, at least where I spend my time, leaves their trash there. And if they do it like in one spot where it's easy to pick them up. And yeah, it's overall better behavior, and the people are extremely drunk too. They're probably taking drugs and whatever, but there's an amount of decency that the fans in Assen, or certain fans, seem to miss, you know. And I've been to Formula One in Spa, which was yeah, from the organization standpoint, absolute catastrophe, because they didn't know what to do with all the cars from the people. But yeah, you didn't see this there too. So still, you know, you start to appreciate the other Grand Prix, even though they're a little bit annoying when you experience something like this. And it's, to me, completely unacceptable. I'm very thankful for all the people who responded to me and shared this experience. And also, if they didn't share the experience themselves, they shared the post and yeah, send it to the TT circuit, and they must have read it. The status today is that they haven't reached out to me personally. I don't know if there's anything. I would love to hear if there were any responses or reactions, because yeah, I assume that they don't want to have these pictures or these experiences on the internet. But yeah, I don't think that they will change something about it, because it's like obvious that this shit happens every year, because they have to clean up the trash every time. They have to see all the fireplaces every time. And basically they make so much money from the whole festival that they simply don't care. That's what I've been told. And they took some actions to keep the city clean, because in the city of Assen there are some problems too, apparently. But at the circuit, no way. And this is, to me, like unacceptable and very sad, because the circuit in itself is very good. Theoretically, I would go there every year and recommend everybody to go there at least once in their lifetime, because it's very, very, very good. It's good racing. You can see very good. It's at a reasonable price with a good organization, but just the behavior of certain people ruins it. And this is, to me, wildly unacceptable. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I have made my points really clear on Instagram, and now after like 1.5 days of talking about this nonstop, I'm kind of at the end. I don't want to stress this anymore, because it frustrates me as well, because I would like to have a good experience there. And especially the sexual harassment part is like the worst thing to every woman who had to experience this. Or also, if you're a man and like your girlfriend or your wife or your sister or your mother, whatever, or a good friend had to experience those stuff, it makes you angry and you want to do something about it. But the big problem there is, let's say I was standing right next to them, when this happened. I would love to armbar the fuck out of them so they can't touch a woman ever again in their life. But then in the end, I'm the bad guy and I'm getting thrown out, you know. And this is a general problem in our society. I don't want to get too political here, but there are too many men who are very disrespectful towards women, and this is a big issue. But yeah, especially this was rather frustrating because I don't want to watch her. She's not my child. She's an adult human being. She can do whatever the fuck she wants, and I don't need to watch every step she takes. But apparently I do, and I fucking hate it, you know. And I'm very much looking forward to Austria because at every other track, people behave like human beings. And I can't understand why it's different in the Netherlands. Is it only the Dutch people? No, probably not. But it speaks volume to the Dutch so-called culture that it only happens there. I mean, even in Belgium, it's like 50 or not 50, but like 200 kilometers away, and people behave totally differently, even though half of the fans are probably Dutch. And this is like a mirror of the organizer. Yeah, it's just sad and very, very frustrating. And I've received a lot of messages of women or people in general who told me, yeah, I would like to go there, but after your story, I will not go there. And I believe this is the only way that they will change something about it. Because as long as they have money in their pocket, why should they change anything? Why would they pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars for security or whatever? They won't. So the only issue is they see is money, and if the fans don't go there anymore, I wouldn't take my family there, you know. Why would anybody take their kids there, or their girlfriends or whatever? So this is the only way you can kind of punish them if you want to. But yeah, it's rather frustrating, and I hope we have, with the power of the internet, somehow the chance to change something. But yeah, my hopes are slim.
Yeah, there's really a few things to break down here. Obviously, before we get into the weekend itself, first of all, littering. Littering isn't okay, and it ain't funny, and it ain't cool. You know, if you somehow think it is, then you're a moron, quite simply, because it ain't funny, it ain't big, and it ain't clever. You know, it doesn't take a lot of effort to pick up after yourself, put rubbish in a bin, and move on about your business. It's not that hard. I mean, I've seen images of the Glastonbury Music Festival that was happening last week as well in England, and they have the exact same problem. People think it's okay to treat places like a dump and walk away without the consequences. It isn't, period. Pick up after yourself, pick your shit up after you, and then move along. It's that simple. Secondly, this peeing in
One,
public.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but one experience I had at the Nürburgring was that they basically gave you trash bags and charged you 10 euros for it, and you had to return them, and then you got your 10 euros back. So this way they made sure that everybody just picked up after themselves.
Yeah, simple initiatives like that can work as well. But even if you don't have a system like that in place, it isn't hard, people. You know, it's one of the most basic things you can do. There's not much more to say about it. Secondly, this urinating in public, I have a really, really big issue with for quite a lot of reasons. But the main one, you know, MotoGP is meant to be a family atmosphere. You know, we have a lot of little children that look up to some of our favorite riders. I mean, Leo, me and you looked up to Valentino Rossi when we were that age. You know, I mean, of course, the man himself. You know, people who were of the era before us looked up to the likes of Barry Sheen and Kenny Roberts and Wayne Rainey, Eddie Lawson, Mick Doohan. The list literally goes on and on and on. The point I'm making is children should be able to go to these races and have a brilliant time. They shouldn't have to worry about seeing grown men pissing in public. You know, I don't agree with people having to be charged to go to the toilet. I'm not saying that. I think that's perversely wrong. But Jesus Christ, have a bit more decorum than that. If you have to go to a nearby field or something like that, then fair enough. I'm not going to argue with you about that. But don't just take your private parts out in front of everybody and start I mean, come on, people. It's 2022. We've got to be beyond that, surely. You know, even in the most underdeveloped parts of the world, you don't see that kind of shit. It ain't excusable, period. And then the biggest issue, by far the biggest issue I have with this, is the sexual harassment that very unfortunately your dear girlfriend experienced. Look, people, I'm not going to spend an hour talking about this because it's the 21st century and we should all know how to behave better than this. So I'm not going to say something that's going to get me arrested or cancelled. But men, take a look at yourselves. You know how to behave. You know that kind of shit isn't okay. And there's no excuse for it. End of. There is no justification. There is no, it's just a joke. It was this, it was that, it was a pickup line, it was whatever. There is no excuse. There's no excuse for making women feel uncomfortable when they're by themselves. I mean, Jesus Christ, like I said, it's 2022. Know when to respect people's boundaries. Know whenever someone's just trying to go about their own business, don't bother them. I can't even believe I have to say this. Don't be grabbing other people against their will. I mean, what the hell is this? I mean, I expect this from certain portions of society in certain places. I don't expect it at MotoGP events, period. And all this is, Leo, is a massive letdown of the people of Assen, quite frankly. I don't like tarring anybody with the same brush. I mean, Irish people have been tarred with many unfair brushes throughout their history. I know what it's like whitewashing groups of people for things they haven't done. But people, you cannot condone this and you cannot say that it's okay. I understand the Dutch are a liberal people and Holland's a liberal country. I have no problem with that. But lines are lines. Keep respect where it belongs. If you want to have the likes of the red light district and you want to be able to smoke marijuana freely, no problem at all. As long as you're peaceful and friendly to other people, do whatever you want to do. But there are lines for everybody, regardless of where you're from. And sexual harassment is one of them. There is no debate about that. And the last point that I'm going to make before we move on is this, because I know we have a big male following, especially men. All men watching this, regardless of whether you're at a MotoGP event, a Nürburgring event, an F1 event, a football event, whatever kind of event or social environment you're in, call this shit out when you see it as well, because it is not all right. I mean, like Leo said, and he made an excellent point, he doesn't want to have to shadow his girlfriend around, like, he's controlling her because he's scared of this kind of thing happening. It isn't okay. I mean, people get hurt from this kind of thing. People can get kidnapped. There can be horrible consequences for this kind of thing. Thankfully, this was nowhere near that, but it has happened before. If you are a man, regardless if you're in Europe, regardless if you're like me and you probably don't speak the language, you can still do the right thing and you can still call people out when you see this kind of thing happening. And as men, we have a responsibility to do the right thing, both as fans of the sport and as men, period. So the last thing I'm going to end with, on unfortunately an incredibly sour note, is this. If you are in public, if you're in a nightclub, if you're in a bar, if you're at a sporting event, wherever you are in society, if you see this kind of behavior happening, step up, use your voice and call it out. It isn't okay. It's not okay that anybody has to feel like this. Imagine if that was a relative of yours that had to feel like that. Think of that the next time you see something like that happening and speak out and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, there are basically two rules. And I can't believe I have to say this, but apparently a lot of people didn't have a mother to raise them properly or whatever, or a father. Yeah, basically people didn't get proper education from their parents and from their social circle there. If you think something about a woman, keep it to yourself. And the second part, if you want to grab her, don't do it. It's as simple as that. Because like me as a fairly tall and kind of well-trained man, I never experienced like the fear of getting raped or getting whatever, you know. It's something that I never experienced, luckily, and probably a lot of males too. So because you have this security, there were women who grabbed my ass when I was in the club, you know, things like this happens, but I never had to fear of getting hurt badly, because I know if it comes down in like 95 of the 95% of the situations, I could defend myself properly, you know. And there are people, especially women, who don't have this luxury, and it is indeed a luxury, you know. And you have to use this as a way to help other people. You have to use this as a way to lead by example, and just, as you said, step up if you see it, and as I said, don't fucking do it. It's as simple as that. And if no man in the entire world, because I can guarantee you right now, when we are talking, when you're listening this, somewhere a woman is getting raped, or a woman is getting harassed, you know, this shit keeps happening. And it's unacceptable that on a MotoGP event, where you should have security, where you should have like well behaving fans, because everybody else people are behaving, this shouldn't happen. I mean, it shouldn't happen periodly, but we are discussing the MotoGP race, so it shouldn't happen there too, you know. And yeah, this is basically all I want to say, because I've had a lot of Dutch people who said they feel embarrassed and feel ashamed to be Dutch, seeing this and reading this and experiencing this. And there are a lot of people like from Indonesia, from Brazil, who texted me like, hey, the littering here is kind of the same. It's a disgusting, but everything else is not here. So even in like quote unquote underdeveloped countries, you know, I don't want to call those countries underdeveloped, because I don't want to disrespect the people there. I mean, yeah, but that's a different topic. But like from a economic standpoint, not so rich countries, you know, um, where you have people who say, okay, we are considering Europe as a safe place in this manner, where we are tidy, where we are respectful towards each other. It's a real shame that this has to that this has to happen, because like I said, I mean, usually it's a very great place to live in Europe, and it doesn't matter if you go to Spain, if you go to Italy, if you go to Austria, if you go to Germany, if you go to Belgium. I've never experienced Silverstone, but I've heard good stuff about Silverstone too. You have idiots everywhere, yeah, but basically those are very good events, you know. And yeah, it's embarrassing for the circuit that this is the only circuit that I've experienced where this happens. And it's literally so easy. Put security there and punish people who behave wrong, and make free toilets.
Yeah. I mean, the toilet thing is an easy situation to fix. Don't charge people to use them because, I mean, people are paying enough to be there already. You know, don't. I was going to say, don't take the piss out of them. And I'm genuinely not trying to be funny, but don't. Okay, it's a serious enough issue. But as for the larger issue, you know, you make a really good point as well there. I mean, Pete, I'm not talking about when maybe underdeveloped was the wrong choice of words. Other faraway countries look to people in the likes of Europe as the standard, okay? And we have an obligation to maintain and exceed that standard in every area of life that we hold ourselves to. The point is, like Leo said, don't do this shit in the first place. And if somehow it is happening, call it out when you see it, okay? I mean, very often in life, I mean, thankfully, I'm very fortunate. I don't think I've ever seen it happen. I'm very grateful for that. But in a situation where this kind of thing does happen and you do see it, you have an obligation to protect people who can't protect themselves. You know, Leo made a really good point there as well about women as well. You know, we don't deal with those inherent weaknesses, or not, sorry, I apologize, wrong choice of words. We don't deal with those inherent vulnerabilities, you know, that are outside of our control. Because we're fortunate enough to not have to have those, it befalls on us to do the right thing and to stamp the shit out at the source. The point is, don't do it, period. And if you unfortunately do see it, do something about it.
Yes. So I guess we have to move on from one shit show to another, which is the stewarding in Assen. I remember that last week we praised Fabio for his aggressively, but walking on this thin line where it not gets overly aggressive and he takes out other people or significantly hinders their races with those moves. And I mean, it had to go wrong eventually. And it did in Assen. It was a simple mistake. I don't fault him for that because it's I'm sorry. It's not like he's a rider who has a reputation of doing this. We will get to David Munoz later, who has this reputation. And so this is a different issue. But Fabio in general is a very clean rider who is able to make aggressive overtakes without being unfair to the opponent. He has done this like the whole season, and it's part the fault of Yamaha because if it felt like he had this sense of urgency to get past Aleix now. It had to happen now. He couldn't wait like another turn. And this is like we discussed a couple of times, the issue of the Yamaha. You have to be in front. You have to have like 5 or 6 good laps where nobody overtakes you and open a gap and then maintain a good pace towards the end to win. And this is literally what he did in Catalonia. This is what he did in Portugal, and this is what he did in Germany. And he wanted to do it as well because Assen is the best track for Yamaha, and he was a little bit too aggressive into turn 1 and fell down to, I believe, 4th position. But yeah, he managed to recover. And as I said, he had to overtake Aleix, which is kind of stupid if you think about it, because he was leading the championship very comfortably. So 3rd place wouldn't be the end of the world. But I mean, you can't blame him for not calculating the whole thing through when you're racing on a MotoGP bike. So, I mean, yeah, he made a mistake. Mistakes happens. He shouldn't have done that, and he should be a little bit more calm and collected. But he didn't. Shit happened. We've seen this from literally everybody at some point in their career. They do stupid mistakes. It happened. Okay, but to give him a long lap for this is absolutely unacceptable. I mean, in modern MotoGP, you are significantly hindered to overtake because of the way the bikes are, with ride height devices, with wings, and with the front tire pressure situation where you can't follow other riders because it's getting the tire is getting too hot. You have to be in clean air and you have to make these aggressive overtakes. It's a little bit like F1, and without getting into too much detail, in F1 there have been situations, for example, Silverstone last year, when you knew, okay, Lewis Hamilton had to overtake Max Verstappen in this corner because if he didn't, there were no chance at all to overtake him. So he made an overtake, which caused an accident. So this is a general problem of the sport. And now we're starting to have this same problem, but still the stupid penalization penalty system that they use in F1, where they penalize racing incidents. And yeah, without getting into detail of F1, it's to me very, very strange that Taka Nakagami dive bombs into the first corner in Catalonia and injures Alex Rins and basically eliminates Pecco from championship contention and doesn't get a penalty. And Fabio, for a racing incident, okay, he was maybe a little bit too aggressive. And if you take the rules literally, you have an argument of punishing him, even though I don't agree with it. But in comparison, these two things don't go along with each other. And I have a very, very big issue with rules being enforced inconsistently. And the second issue is when you have those inconsistent enforcement of rules, you can't just be in the middle of the season start to be overly correct, you know? Especially when, as far as I'm concerned, David Munoz and Adrian Fernandez didn't get a penalty. We will get to that later. But again, the same inconsistency. And I totally don't agree with this, because let's imagine Fabio leads the race in Silverstone and has to take the long lap and finishes third. And then he loses the championship with like 6 points at the end. You would probably ask yourself if this long lap was really worth if the punishment was worth the crime. And to me, it didn't. And the inconsistency is just stupid to me. And you can't just change these things mid-season, because you start to have those comparisons where you say, okay, you didn't there, but you did there. This is stupid. And it holds people back from launching overtakes. And this is what we want to see. I mean, yeah, they go wrong sometimes, but Aleix wasn't necessarily put in a, I don't want to say put in a bad situation, because he was put in a bad situation and made the best out of it. He was a fucking hero, but he still was in a position where this was possible. And he overtook a couple of dudes. I don't know exactly where he was. It was hard to remember, or hard to see even at the grandstand. I believe it was something like 12th or 13th, and he overtook 8 to 10 people, I don't know, to finish in fourth. And this is amazing. So he still had the opportunity to do this, and there's no fucking way that Fabio deserves a long lap penalty for this, because to me, this is the definition of a racing incident. He was punished enough by losing 13 points to his closest championship competitor, and he ended up in a gravel, and the other rider managed to rejoin in a somewhat decent position. So yeah, the best comparison I can make is that a couple of years ago, they had these jump starts where they thought about changing the jump start penalty. And it was evident that you can't change it mid-season, because you're punishing the people who did it at the beginning of the season much more severe than at the end of the season. So it's not fair over a championship where every point counts, you know? And this is basically the same. You can't just mid-season start to penalize racing incidents with long laps when you didn't before. Like Pecco, for example, from this logic, he should have received like a double long lap for the move he made on Martin in Qatar, and he didn't. To me, rightfully so, because this was too a racing incident. But yeah, that's a different discussion. But yeah, let's imagine Pecco wins the championship somehow. Is this really what you want for it to come down to? No, this is fucking stupid. And the inconsistency is what gets to me the most, but I still have a big issue with enforcement of the rule in general, because I don't think that this is in any way something you should penalize. This what Taka did is to me something that you should penalize, but like Pecco in Qatar is not worth a penalty. And what Pecco did is far worse than what Fabio did, and Fabio got a penalty and Pecco not. This is such bullshit. And yeah, we discussed this a lot of times, that they are inconsistent with Moto 2 and Moto 3 in comparison with MotoGP. And now they're very inconsistent within MotoGP, because there's no explanation why Taka, even in Mugello, he didn't get a penalty. I simply don't get it. And it makes me angry that this impacts championship potentially. As I said, imagine Fabio loses the championship by 6 points. Was this penalty really worth losing the championship? No, this is fucking bullshit.
Yeah, there's a lot to break down here. I'll try and go through it as quickly as I can. Fabio, I feel really sorry for in many ways, because, I mean, I don't even remember the amount of times we've talked about the Yamaha and its various severe deficiencies, but he qualified in P2 in a sort of Ducati sandwich between Bagnaia and Martin. He kind of got swallowed up a little bit. Alicia Spargo ended up ahead of him coming out of turn one, I believe. And the race goes on as it does, fair enough. And he kind of dive bombs a little bit into the turn, tries to get it back out again, but just can't. Look, he's been punished enough for this. I agree with you. The enforcement of these long lap penalties are just absolute bollocks, quite frankly. They don't make any sense. The fact that Nakagami hasn't received a single punishment for wiping out Alex Rins and Pecco Bagnaia in Catalonia, but you're going to punish Fabio for a slide into an opponent who got back out again. It makes no sense, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And I absolutely agree with you in that this could decide the championship. I mean, if Fabio's probably going to qualify really well in Silverstone, I think are we going to Silverstone next?
Yeah, I believe so.
Say he qualifies really well in Silverstone, a track that Yamaha generally does pretty good at. He's now probably going to lose 3 or 4 places to a couple of Ducatis in that mix, and he's going to be right back where he started. And was the punishment worth it? No, it wasn't. It was the textbook thesaurus definition of a racing incident, and it's nothing more than that. He knew he'd done wrong. He went into the paddock and he apologized to Aleix as well. Aleix had no problem with it. Fabio had no problem with it. Why do Race Direction now have a problem with it? It makes no sense. And like you said, Leo, and this grinds my gears beyond comprehension, the fact that Race Direction have screwed up so many decisions where they didn't intervene, they're now intervening where they don't need to. And now you're in the territory of potentially screwing up championships, which I hate beyond all measure. The fact is, this should not be a long lap penalty at all. It was textbook racing incident. He went in, he slightly overcooked it. He got his punishment by losing the 13 points. Aleix went out, had the best ride of his career, by the way. Ultimate credit to Aleix Spargo. Went out, rode that bike like a man possessed, and finished in P4. The bottom line is no need for a long lap penalty. It's absolutely BS. You know it, I know it, and everybody knows it.
Yeah. I mean, even though I don't agree with it, you could argue like, okay, Aleix had a potential of winning the race or finishing second or finishing third. And because of Fabio's move, he couldn't. Okay, but when you want to argue like this, why don't you have no races at all and just time trials? I mean, if you don't want overtakes and people potentially making mistakes, don't have races at all. And this is basically what MotoGP is turning into. You have these stupid winglets, you have these stupid ride-height devices, and you have these stupid stewards who in common ruin the sport that we all love. Somebody needs to get a flex out and crop those winglets. Somebody needs to change the bike that they don't have those ride-height devices anymore. And somebody needs to fire every one of the stewards and get people in there who are actually competent. Because when you have like Freddie Spencer in there, you would think that he knows what he's doing, but he doesn't know a single fuck. I don't know what is happening. This dude is a former racer and is sitting there judging people on racing incidents where they simply made a mistake. Was Fabio wrong for this? No. Was he right? No. But it's somewhere in the middle. No need for a penalty. As you said, he was already penalized enough. And this, as Peter Griffin would say, this really grinds my gears. It's fucking disgrace to the sport.
It is.
You don't want to have a World Cup decided by a controversial penalty point, whatever in soccer it's called.
Yeah.
What is it? Penalty shot?
You don't want it decided by like a dodgy penalty or, an offside goal that shouldn't have counted. This is not what we watch sport for. It just isn't.
I mean, Formula One last year, it was a great season, and it ended with a lot of controversy. You don't want to see this. You want to have the best man win. And the race direction is doing everything they can to, like, first of all, use Fabio as setting an example. And it's, I believe, the wrong example. And also it could be that they try to make the championship more interesting, because it's, at the end, it's all about money. Could be,
Yeah,
who
pretty
knows?
much.
They're not benefiting from punishing Taka, but they're maybe benefiting from punishing Fabio. So this is like a corrupt way of penalizing a rider, and this is like the only explanation that I have. Or the other one is that they got incredibly high and ate like the wrong bananas from the stripper's pussy.
Jesus
And
Christ.
by the way, this is absolutely real. Everybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, Alonso Lopez posted a story from a post from the red light district, and I recommended him to go to the banana bar, because you can eat bananas out of a stripper's pussy there. So this joke carried a little bit on. But yeah, maybe race direction ate the wrong
I'm
banana,
not involved.
smoked the wrong joint, and I would say that if I'm high, I can make a million times better decisions than race direction is right now. Because even though I never raced motorcycles in my life, I have a basic understanding on what you can do and what you cannot do. And seemingly they're just throwing darts at a wall and see what penalty they should enforce. You know, it's like this experiment that was made on the Wall Street, where they had apes throwing darts at stocks, and they bought the stocks who who the apes threw the darts at, and at the end they performed as good as a hedge fund, which was kind of funny. And basically the same as doing race direction right now, with the exception that they aren't, or maybe they're performing as well as Formula One. If that's standard, okay, you achieved your goal. But the standard should be much higher. And when we go to Moto2, we have David Munoz, who has a reputation, Moto3, I'm sorry. We have a rider who has a reputation of doing those overly optimistic overtakes. And yeah, he took out Masia, where Masia literally was in the middle of the track at basically before the breaking point, left no centimeter at all on the inside, and David Munoz decided to dive bomb into the inside and take Masia out. Didn't get a penalty. Adrian Fernandez, basically the same, just in the next corner. He was very, very aggressive into a turn where basically everything was lost already, and he lost the front and took out Joel Kelso, who broke his foot. That's the second injury Joel Kelso has through no fault of his own. He had the incident in Jerez where he was in a warm-up and a bike flew into his leg, so he injured himself there too. And those people don't get a penalty. I don't know what's going on. I simply don't know what's going on, and it's really getting frustrating.
We need to start an official BadMotoGP memes petition for next season to have 7 chimps and the rain lady from Indonesia as the new race direction panel. Because these dickheads ain't cutting it. It's that simple. The fact that they can mess up something as so simple as Taka Nakagami dive bombs, takes out 2 riders and himself. No, we don't think there's anything wrong with that. Fabio Quartararo goes for at least a gap on the inside. Okay, he doesn't pull it off. It's his first mistake all season. The rider he hits gets back on track. Fabio is never going to get the position back. Yes, let's give him a long lap penalty. I wonder what's wrong with that. Let's see. Exactly. Come on, race direction. Get your heads out of your behinds, because this isn't good enough. Quite frankly, a bunch of apes throwing darts would be better race direction. At least they'd have a chance of getting the right call. You know, it's like they say, Leo, even a broken clock's right twice a day. I'd rather trust an ape throwing a dart at a rule on the wall than these idiots who are current race direction. What is going on? I don't
I
even
don't
talk
know.
to me about Moto 3. That's just Mad Max and 2 wheels.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. The solution is basically pretty simple. Fire everybody and put people in there who actually know what they're doing. They don't have to be former racers because apparently they aren't competent too.
Well,
Just
current former racers in cutting it.
just people with brains who know a little bit about MotoGP and know a little bit about the rules. Because even though I don't know a single fuck about the rules, I know what you can do and what you can't do. It's as simple as that. You have to watch like 15 to 20 races, basically watch a season and you're qualified. It's like the MMA judging. You basically have to make three crosses and then you know what to do, you know? I simply don't understand it. And yeah, maybe there need to be some kind of an education system to be a MotoGP steward, because apart from track limits, which they are getting excessively right to an extent where it's still wrong, you know, they're so right with track penalties that they're wrong again. Everything else they are getting wrong. And it's like this one meme I posted after Portugal where it's this scene where somebody wants to get hired and the interviewer asks him like, do you know anything about MotoGP? And the dude says, no, I'm a plumber. This every race I could repost it. It's so fucking bad. And it's frustrating because we can't change anything.
I mean, the level of incompetence is funny, isn't it? You know, I mean, I swear, and I don't even know how ironic I'm trying to be anymore. We could get a bunch of orangutans and unicycles and put them in race direction, and they'd be better than the current people in there. Every single decision they're getting wrong. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's either a racing incident or it's worthy of punishment. And even when it is worthy of punishment, they're getting the wrong punishments. I don't know anymore. I really don't. I think we should be race direction.
Yeah, it would be funny to have like a live stream and do something about it. I mean, like, explain this to me. Darren Binder gets a one race ban, if I remember correctly, or just gets disqualified from the race and can race the next race. I can't remember, but last year when he basically did the worst thing possible, which was not only taking another rider out, taking the championship contender who was fighting for the title. There were two people, take out everybody else, but two people you can't take out. And he managed to take out one of them. He gets a black flag for or disqualified from the race, if I remember correctly, and can race the next race. And then you have riders like Taka, who dive bomb into two rider, injures another rider, get no penalty at all. I mean, what are we doing here? You may have like a million incidents and see no sort of direction where they're going. This is the bad thing. If they were even enforcing the bad rules consistently, okay, we can say the rules are wrong, but not the stewards who are enforcing it. But the rules are wrong, yes, but they're picking and choosing who to punish. And this is bullshit, because there are millions of dollars or of euros which are deciding where to go on who wins the championship or who wins a race or whatever, you know. And you're literally taking money out of people's pockets for incidents that shouldn't happen, yes, but were simply mistakes, you know. And on the other hand, you're not punishing somebody who injures people like almost on purpose, you know. I mean, it's like the second weekend in a row where Taka took out Alex Rins. How bad can you hate someone?
Oh man, I mean, Alex Rins must have done something bad on Taka Nakagami, because every incident it's Nakagami and it's Rins. I mean, the two are like magnetically drawn to each other at this point. But I agree with you. I do. I mean, it's not even that race direction are incompetent, because they are massively. We know that. You know, it's getting to the point where they're picking and choosing who they're punishing and who they aren't. I mean, the fact that last season Darren Binder got black flagged for dive bombing Dennis Foggia and then was allowed to race the next race. I mean, that was when I completely gave up because you're taking the liability of the situation. You're punishing him when the crime's already been committed, and then you're letting him back out to do it again in the next race. I mean, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I have nothing constructive I can say here because the incompetence that's in front of my eyes is unbelievable. I mean, the fact that Moto 3 is in the state that it's in, the fact that it's starting to happen in Moto 2 as well, and now we have someone like Nakagami running around like a menace, taking out people at the front to the middle of the grid. I mean, I don't know anymore.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at soccer, when you look at football, you know, there are people making decisions in real time and shit can happen. Okay. But they had enough time to think about the situation before speaking out a penalty, because they have like a 5-week summer break. Watch the thing a million times and then decide, because you have the time. You don't have to make a decision now in real time. Get the correct decision and then move on. And I don't know if there's any instance, or no, not instance. If there's any like group of people, I don't know, who are controlling race direction, like for example, when you're at work judging everything, that your boss or somebody else controls you if you're doing it right, and if you're not doing it right, you get fired. If there's something along the line in MotoGP, I don't know, probably not. And we need something like this. We need like a panel of stewards who are stewarding the stewards.
Yeah, we do actually. We need some kind of advisory panel to watch over these race stewards because something just isn't clicking with these stewards. This much is clear. We need. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's almost like the Legion of Doom are controlling MotoGP race direction every weekend. It's absolute madness, and I can't even remember what we were meant to talk about next because I'm not mad talking about this that I can't even remember what else we've got to talk about. We've probably got something else mad to include as well. But race direction, please try and get it together. It's like you said as well, and this is where I'll end off with this. They said, incident to be reviewed after the race. I thought, okay, they're taking their time to get this right. Okay, they've learned from previous decisions. They're going to take the time. They're going to come to the right decision at the end of the race, and we'll all be relieved that at least they got something right. And they still got it wrong. You took 26 laps of a race to work out what to punish Fabio with, even though he shouldn't have been punished at all. But you were going to punish him with something, and you still punished him with the wrong thing, even though you had nearly 45 freaking minutes to review it. That's all I'm going to say, because I'll just end up saying something I regret.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke, basically. And what pisses me off that they changed their approach mid-season, because it's unfair towards the people who did or didn't get penalized at the beginning of the season, because now you're having a double standard, and this is bad. You should have these changes after the season and stick with one direction, at least if it's not like a huge safety issue, where in this case it obviously wasn't. But yeah. We have to talk about Moto 2, because this is like the only race where no big controversial happened.
For once.
Yeah, I mean, Augusto Fernandez, he's getting good. He's like Remy and Rowe last year. He's what we all expected him to be. And while he is taking over, everybody else is struggling. I mean, Vietti, he had a good comeback, finished in 4th, but Vietti shouldn't have been in the position to make a comeback in the first place. So yeah, he made the best out of a bad decision. But if you want to compete for a championship, you should do what Pecco did back in the day, what Frankie did, what Remy did, what Raul did, which was be at the front every race. And yeah, credit to him, he managed to recover, but he should have been on the podium. That should be his aim, or at least in the podium battle, Then in the next part, Ogura, he had two big mistakes. He managed to finish second, if I remember correctly, which was very good.
That's right.
But those mistakes shouldn't happen, because otherwise he would have won the race. Like in the beginning of the race, I said to my girlfriend, "Hey, look out for Ogura. He will win this thing," because he was like in third or something at the beginning of the race, which was very, very impressive. And yeah, I mean, second is not bad, but imagine he would have won that race, he would have been in a better position in the championship. And these mistakes shouldn't happen. I mean, Albert Arenas crashed, but who cares? Albert Arenas is like the Jean Mir of Moto2. He's good, but not special, and nobody cares about him. Simple as that.
Deputy insurance salesman.
Yeah. Marcel Schröter, he pulled a Jake Dixon and crashed in the lead, which was rather unfortunate, because this would have been great. I believe it would have been his first race victory period. So yeah, but overall it looks like the momentum is swinging away from Vietti and towards Augusto Fernandez. Ayogura is good, but I see the same issue I saw like in Moto3 when he was competing for a championship there, that he was missing like this little thing, you know. He's very good, he can win races, but he's missing like this extra step that Augusto could take in Germany, for example, where he was like head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah, I agree with you. I got to be honest. I thought this was another brilliant Moto2 race. I have to be honest. I've been really happy with Moto2 this year, even though I absolutely love Remy. Not as much Raul, but they had a great season last season. That no one was ever really in the title race apart from them two, because they smacked away everybody else. And I have to be honest, I'm kind of really enjoying that the crown for Moto2 champion is going through a bit of a hot potato phase right now, where it's jumping from one to the next to the next to the next. But I agree with you. Momentum is swaying firmly towards Augusto Fernandez. He's doing a brilliant job of recovering his season. Not that he was having a bad one, but he wasn't having necessarily a title winning one. Now he is. And he did a brilliant job. He qualified, I think he qualified, if I'm not wrong, on the second row, somewhere towards the front of the second row. And he did a really good job to hold out for most of the race. And then when everybody started falling apart, he showed his composure, made his way to the front, and never looked like surrendering the lead again. So massive credit to Augusto Fernandez. Great, great form. Ayogura, I firmly agree with you. Thought he had a brilliant race as well. There was a point where Ayogura was like 13th, 14th with those two incidents that you mentioned. And he just ate up the rest of the field and came back to second. I mean, that's title winning form as well. It really is. And it's MotoGP form as well, too. Ayogura, a ton of respect, had a brilliant race, fell back, and not only did he cut through the rest of the field, he did it unbelievably safely as well. Every move was very well measured, very composed, very calm, just flowed through the rest of the track. And he was brilliant. He really, really was. Jake Dixon, credit to him. I'm happy to see him on the podium. Nice guy. Obviously qualified on pole. Podium, I think he will be very happy with, especially going into the summer break. He's finally getting some positivity on the gas bike. Celestino Vietti, his title charge is starting to really stall now, but he got a fourth place, which he's quite lucky to have gotten, because he was in the middle of nowhere. He was 13th, 14th at one point. He'll take that, but he really needs to start picking up the pace when we come back from the summer break. He knows that. We know that. Everybody knows that. And all around, it was a really, really good race. One person who I thought had a brilliant race was Fermin Aldeguer, and he was challenging towards the front in the early stages.
Alonso Lopez.
Sorry, you're absolutely right, Alonso Lopez. Fermin had a good race as well, but Alonso Lopez really, really impressed me. You're absolutely correct. He had a brilliant race. I was so impressed with him. I mean, his form on that Moto2 bike is incredible. And obviously he's going to do really well this season, but I'm really looking forward to watching Alonso Lopez next season as well, because that kid has got talent.
Yeah, and regarding Jake Dixon, if you remember last episode, where I said I can see him going to MotoGP if Gas gets a MotoGP team.
You did?
Results like this, they justified enough to do it, even though everybody knows it's the wrong thing to do, you know?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I mean, there were a lot of people who I would prefer to go to move to MotoGP, but they certainly have to get rid of them if he stays in Moto2, and they certainly have to get rid of Albert Arenas, because ain't no fucking way if Izan Guevara and Sergio Garcia come up that they will do anything to let them go.
Oh,
If you
not a
have to
chance.
decide between Albert Arenas and between Jake Dixon, between Albert Arenas and Jake Dixon, and between Izan Guevara and Sergio Garcia, you take the Moto3 boys all day long.
Yeah, I think you do. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, even if you have to pay them like extra money or whatever, the people from Moto3 are much better than the people from Moto2. As simple as that. And they're doing a fantastic job, which kind of brings us to Moto3, because Izan Guevara was really leading the race all the race until like the last lap, which was rather unfortunate for him, but like entertaining for the championship. And Sergio Garcia made an amazing comeback to third. I don't know where this came from, but he managed to do it. And it doesn't matter where you race, it matters where you finish. And he was good. But like the big one was the David Munoz situation, because he not only took out Masia, he was also kind of involved in this Foggia crash, because into the first corner, David Munoz was trying to overtake Foggia on the inside, but he didn't have like the pace or the braking power to do so, because he was only next to him. And even though he didn't do anything wrong there, they didn't touch, and the crash in itself wasn't Dennis Foggia's fault, because it wasn't David Munoz's fault, because it's David. I get those names confused. Excuse me. It's not Dennis Foggia's fault that he ended up there, because David Munoz was on the inside, not really overtake him, not really staying back, and just kind of pushed him out, but without no touching, But it's Dennis Foggia's responsibility to return to the track safely. And it's not David Munoz's fault that he crashed there, but still they overtook each other a little bit, and it felt like from sparring, when you spar with someone and you get hit hard accidentally or whatever, it's important to keep calm and not turn into okay, I will return the favor and swing for the fences, so it turns into a brawl, because the energy just picks up, and this is something you want to avoid when you're training. And the same applied a little bit to the Moto3 race, I believe, because they were kind of pushing each other a little bit towards more aggression with overtakes, which weren't necessarily the cleanest. And I trust Dennis Foggia way more than I trust David Munoz with those overtakes. But yeah, it kind of got more and more intense, and David Munoz just lost it at the end when he crashed into Masia. And yeah, when we thought we sorted the whole Stewart thing out, they returned, because as far as I'm concerned, he didn't get a penalty for this, which is absolutely bonkers to me. I would go this far and give him a race ban, because you're not really affecting his season. He's just a rookie. He won't compete for a championship, whatever. But his track record is so bad. Even in junior GP, he took out Agi, I believe, in Catalonia, if I remember correctly. He took out 3, 4, 5 people in Germany last year in the first corner, where everybody just crashed and only one survived who won the race. Now he comes to MotoGP and is launching those aggressive overtakes, and there are a lot of people whose opinion I respect a lot, and they have nothing good to say about David Munoz, because even though they may be not saying it publicly, they're saying it privately, and yeah, it's a tough one, because when you allow this kind of behavior, at one point or another, somebody injures themselves without no fault of his own, which brings us to the Joel Kelso and Adrian Fernandez incident, because Joel has a broken foot right now with no fault of his own. And when you like allow this kind of behavior, you are basically waiting for an injury or even worse, you know, because when you are so aggressive in those Moto3 fields, it's so easy to get ran over by somebody, because if you crash, even though it's just a light touch and you crash or whatever, and you are on the racing line somehow and somebody rides over you, we've seen what can happen, and nobody wants to see this. And therefore I would punish David Munoz severely to get this shitty behavior out of him. They kind of did it with Dennis Öncü, and they kind of succeeded, because he's still aggressive, but without any incidents there, you know? And it's just getting too much to me, because not only because of this incident, which was bad, yes, but when you look at the whole thing, it's like the opposite from Fabio. I can't remember the last time Fabio did something stupid, but I remember like 4 or 5 David Munoz situations where I don't watch Junior GP or Red Bull Rookies Cup regularly, which says a lot, you know?
Yeah, I think with Moto3, especially this Moto3 race, of course, it's definitely a scenario where cooler heads did not prevail at all. In fact, quite badly. The problem with Moto3 is that you've got a lot of guys there who are still kids, 16, 17, 18, and they basically think they're, way more experienced than they are. They think they can late break on people. They think they can cut up racing lines, and people are suffering because of it. And quite frankly, I'm beyond fed up of it now. I mean, look, it makes for great drama. It makes for great TV. I understand that, but it does not make for great racing, and that's my primary concern more than anything. And David Munoz needs to be punished for this, and he needs to be punished quite severely for it as well. I mean, I'm like you, I don't like punishing people any more than they need to be. In fact, I'm very, I try to be as liberal as I can when it comes to the need to punish riders. But when you're as reckless as David Munoz is, there has to be a line where you do something about it. And what he did in that race was just beyond unacceptable. There is no other word for it. We've seen Darren Binder do this. We've seen Dennis Öncü do this loads of times as well. I think it was Qatar last season that he did it. And he was just
You mean the Jerez incident where
yes.
he...
Yeah, we saw it at Jerez. We've seen it in loads of other places. And this kind of shit needs to be stamped out. It's that simple. I hate having to bring it up because it was a tragedy, but it's a very good point that you made. We've seen guys like Jason DePasquier, may his dear soul rest in peace. We've seen people who have nothing to do with incidents get caught up, and tragically, they can suffer broken bones. They can suffer their lives being taken. And clearly, a lot of these riders just aren't getting the message. So we need stringent punishment, and we need, I mean, not that I trust them to do it because I don't, but we need race stewards to step in and say, right, enough is enough. You're banned for the next race, maybe the next race after that, until you learn what not to do. And as for Dennis Foggia, yes, I'm sorry he ended up in that situation, but you have to know when to rejoin safely. I mean, you're one of the most experienced riders on the Moto3 grid. If you don't know when to rejoin safely, there's no hope for anybody else, and that's just a fact. So, I mean, and unfortunately, we're taken away yet again from a great race at the front. Izan Guevara dominated the race. Ayumu Sasaki comes in at the last second and wins for his first ever win, which is brilliant. Gas dominate again, second and third. Guevara and Garcia. Tatsuki Suzuki finishing fourth. We got like Daniel Holgado finishing sixth. That's brilliant. But once again, excuse me, the conversation and the narrative is dominated by these people who are riding recklessly and dangerously, and it has to stop. It does have, look, the occasional crash is great where it's nobody's fault and whatever happens, happens. But we've got guys like Joel Kelso who are now suffering injuries through no fault of their own. We have people whose campaigns are being ruined because of this sort of thing. The point is, Leo, bottom line, whatever, we need more stringent punishment or this is going to keep happening.
Yeah. And basically the big issue there is, of course, what Joel mentioned to me in the podcast, which was rather shocking, that a lot of young kids kind of get forced from their parents to race there and don't actually want to be there. So imagine you're one of these kids and you are there because your parents want you to be there, and somebody crashes into you and you injure yourself, or worse, you may be paralyzed, you may lose your life, and even though the age limit of 18 doesn't solve the problem in itself, it kind of makes it better. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. Because my big issue always was, okay, they're still racing just in a junior GP. So you're transferring problem from A to B. You're not solving the problem, which still is correct. But the probability of something bad happening, if you have 20 races, it's much higher than the probability of something happening when you have like 11 races or whatever they have in junior GP. And also, it's something different when you have this world championship pack where everybody is so fucking fast and it's so condensed that you almost can't ride your line, because every corner somebody is there, and if you aren't 100% sure what you're doing and have the experience, that's a problem. And in junior GP you see a lot of groups getting formed. It's not usually like a big pack. It's like a group, like let's say 5 to 6, 7, 8 guys at a maximum. Oftentimes it's a little bit less. And in championship you see groups like from 1 to 20th place, and they're all at this kind of same level where you have these minor differences who separate in Izan Guevara from like a Tatsuki Suzuki or from a John McPhee. Those are fucking fast riders, but it's like these minor differences. And if you gain this experience and actually want to be there, then it's, I guess, more safe for everybody else.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore, and obviously Moto 3 is the one class where we have this issue because every bike is pretty much the same with different, clothing. It's pretty much the same person with different attire on for every team. And the problem is we've got these groups bunching up, and then we have people acting recklessly to try and win. And then we've got like sort of schools of people who are at risk of getting injured or something worse. So the point is, bottom line, no matter what angle you come from in this, we all kind of end up at the same point of agreement. Something has to be done because Moto 3 is getting to the point where it's extremely dangerous to be there. And, I don't like having to say that about any class because it should always be, fun, and it should always be healthy to be able to participate in it. You should, your life shouldn't overly be at risk. That's just not the point. But you make a very interesting point there, and I do agree with you because I do think, and this might be a little bit of a generalization, but I think especially there's a lot of Spanish riders and riders from the continent who don't actually want to be there. I think the sport's so big wherever these people are from that there's a lot of riders who are being forced to be there who don't want to be. And then they're finding themselves in these situations where they're just completely demoralized. they don't want to be there, and they're just miserable. So the point is, the age limit definitely doesn't solve everything. We need more stringent criteria to fix Moto3, or it's going to end up in a really bad place, and none of us want that.
Yeah, I mean, Moto2 is basically the same bike for everybody, and it's really competitive, but they know how to race. It's the lack of experience in Moto3, and also it's the bike in itself, because I would increase the engine size to 300 cubic centimeters, which basically I would let everything stay the same, just increase the engine size a little bit, I don't know how much more horsepower you would get, a little bit, maybe you get a little bit more top speed, you still have those amazing corner speeds, you still have all the benefits of Moto3 with just a little bit more power, which kind of makes the slipstream a little bit less of an effect. You are not solving it completely, therefore you have to go to Moto2 and MotoGP, because there the slipstream is almost no factor at all, but yeah, if you have a little bit more power, you can solve the issue of the slipstream, and it's enough if you pull the groups out just a little bit, if it's not worth a second to ride in the slipstream, just like 8/10 on, or whatever, 7/10, on a track like Mugello. And when you go to a track like Germany, for example, you may be able to break away this little bit earlier, and therefore maybe the races are not as close, but people aren't fucking dying, and you're benefiting free practices and qualifying too, because you don't have these people waiting out there for a slipstream, because it's not worth as much. It still would be worth a lot, and it still would be beneficial to be in a slipstream, but if not, you aren't completely lost, you're just lost, you know what I mean? It's like these little differences which could make a difference.
Yeah, I genuinely couldn't agree anymore. I can't add anything to that. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and with the age limit, I think we have a very great example in Joel Kelso, because he's 19 now, and there are like no dumb moves made from him. He had this last corner incident in Indonesia, racing incident, nothing happened. Okay, shit happens, but still, he's generally a very, very cool and collected rider who knows what to do and what not to do. It feels like he's missing like this extra step, but then he's a rookie. Next year he will make probably a big step, and maybe the year after that he will make another step and be at the front, because he has shown that he can beat riders like Daniel Gardo. He has shown that in rookies, so why not now? And to see him suffering from the stupidity of other people, where they go for gaps that don't exist, or crash after a warm-up session, after the checkered flag has been out, is very sad, because it's the wrong dude who gets punished, but it is what it is. Hopefully he will return after the summer break, and hopefully Race Direction will do something about these dive bombs, because if you want to penalize something, penalize this shit, and penalize it severely.
Yeah, we need a t-shirt that says racing incident and a definition of what an actual racing incident is. Because, I mean, we joke about it and we kid about it, but it does need fixed. It really, really does. There is no simpler way of putting it. And as for Joel Kelso, I really hope he does recover a bit over the summer break, because I really am looking forward to seeing him back. Like we said, he's just been so unfortunate with these kind of incidents, and it's hardworking riders like him that suffer the consequence of it. Joel's one of the cleanest riders I've ever seen, and he's still getting injured, and that tells you something. It ain't him causing the injuries, it's other people, and there has to be something done about it. Otherwise, it's just going to end up in a complete mess. So just get it together, would you? I mean, this season's kind of done because we're halfway through anyway. But from next season, just get it together. And I actually like the engine proposal. I would upgrade the engine size to 300cc as well. because I do think with these bikes being exactly the same, it's creating the bunch ups, which is allowing immature characters to dive bomb, do whatever, and wipe people out. Give them a little bit more power. See if that helps the situation. It might.
Yeah, and as a last note, David Munoz, he was also very aggressive towards Tatsuki Suzuki. It never went to the extent that it went with Masia, obviously, but he still was very aggressive. And if you put these things together, like Foggia, Suzuki, and Masia, then something's wrong. And this is just one race. They have to do something about him because he's a very good rider who is very, very fast. Yes, but he's also very, very stupid.
Yeah, couldn't have summed David Munoz up any better. I mean, look, the kid can race. You know, he didn't just show up at a Grand Prix track with his suitcase and his leathers and just get on a bike. He's there for a reason. He's there because he can race. The problem is his brain doesn't match his ability on track, and that's what you have to manage. I mean, sometimes you've got to save these riders from themselves and you've got to step in and do something when either they can't or they won't. And David Munoz is just the latest example of that. Like you said, you know, over aggressive to Tatsuki Suzuki as well. It's going to get to a point where there'll be a race later in the season and there's going to be a mammoth crash or a mammoth incident. Someone like David Munoz is going to be involved, and the other riders are going to refuse to race if he's there. And I don't want to see people boycotting races because other racers are there. That's not, you know, why we follow the sport. But I understand where these riders are coming from. Something has got to be done because it's unfair. You know, the fact that these guys are doing this and they keep getting away with it, it isn't right. They need to be punished and something needs to be done.
Yeah. So I would end it with that. After the summer break, we will see each other with hopefully improved quality. We will work something out during the summer break, and then hopefully we have races with a bit more brain capacity used by A, the riders, and B, the stewards. So, and the fans, of course. Hopefully the fans in Silverstone behave well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm not holding out much hope for race direction, if I'm totally honest, but you know, I've seen miracles happen before. Hopefully, that's one of them. Riders, just use your brain a little bit more. You don't have to dive bomb in every single turn. Just keep some composure, race how you know how to race, and we all get along just fine after that. And fans, don't be pissing out in public. Pick up your rubbish after you, and do not make people feel uncomfortable. Pretty simple.
Yeah. Okay. So goodbye and see you after the summer break.
See you after the summer break. And everybody, thank you for watching as well.